Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. I'm Reverend Matt and I'm the Connectionalist. I'm so glad that I'm back with you guys, and I want to cover the Bishop Mullally controversy that's been going around. I'm a little late to the party on this. I was literally on my honeymoon, didn't really know what was going on in the world half the time when I was on my honeymoon, so I'm looking forward to covering this today. For those of you who don't know, the controversy is basically that the Archbishop of Canterbury, which is kind of a first among equals bishop, kind of really a figurehead leader for the Church of England, is now a woman for the first time, Sarah Mullally. And this has ignited a firestorm, and it's reignited the debate over women's ordination. Should women be even serving as pastors, let alone bishops, or the Archbishop of Canterbury? And so I kind of want to address this from my perspective as a Methodist pastor and as someone who is totally fine with women's ordination. And is very affirming of women's ordination, because that's not a perspective that's being widely talked about or widely shared, I don't think. And so we're going to react to Redeemed Zoomer's video today. Redeemed Zoomer's been talking a lot about this. That was the first video I saw about it. I have not watched this video, so we're going to kind of dive in. Of course, Redeemed Zoomer is going to be definitely more conservative on the issue, but I kind of want to be able to push back and offer a different perspective. So let's go ahead and jump right on in.
Hey guys, I'm Redeemed Zoomer. So as of this morning, the Church of England has selected the next Archbishop of Canterbury, and it does not look good. For those of you wondering, the Archbishop of Canterbury is kind of like the Pope of Anglicanism, but
And he's going to explain the caveat. It's not. It's quite a bit different because it's like a first among equals system. There's a different amount of authority. He's going to explain that, I'm sure. Just the first overall view. Hold on. I just realized Zoomer's in the bottom right corner. Let's move myself like right here for now, and we'll see how that works. I'm not gonna do all my commentary at the very beginning of the video. Let's just kind of handle things one by one as they come.
much less authoritative, because the Archbishop of Canterbury only has direct authority over the Church of England,
Right.
and the Church of England is like first among equals in the Anglican communion, in global Anglicanism. But still, the Archbishop of Canterbury is a very important role. There are some small conservative schismatic Anglican groups that are not in the Anglican communion, like the ACNA and the Continuing Anglicans, but I don't really consider them Anglican, because the entire purpose of Anglicanism during the Reformation was conformity to the institutional national church. So a schismatic Anglican group is a contradiction in terms, basically.
Yeah, he's not wrong about that. I've seen a lot of stuff. Zoomer apologized this morning about a lot of the things that he was saying. I think that's a good thing that he apologized. I think he went a little too hard. He just went a little too hard. And so I appreciated the apology on that. However, he's not wrong from the general sense of like Anglicanism is about conforming yourself to the national church, not a global church, which is like how the Catholics do it. So yeah, he's not entirely wrong about that.
But yes, this is the new Archbishop of Canterbury. This lady, Sarah Mullally, and she is very liberal. She supports abortion in some cases, and she supports same-sex unions, which is something that the Church of England allowed a couple years ago. This is not acceptable. It is not acceptable for any Christian leader to support abortion at all whatsoever. The Bible says, "You shall not murder." It's one of the 10 Commandments, and abortion is murder. I know.
Well, it just depends on, like, I don't know what her position is. I have a video on abortion. I am functionally, for most of my ministry, pro-life, but I have differences of opinions on how the legal system should deal with it. Obviously, I don't think abortion should ever be used as a means of birth control. I have a long video about this. I'm not going to go into my position on abortion. Go to my channel, you can find it. It's very easy to find. But I'm not sure if it's her liberalness or if it's the fact that she's a woman. I'm sure it's both. But to say like, let's go back and get the direct quote.
"You shall not murder." It's one of the 10. This is not acceptable. It is not acceptable for any Christian leader to support abortion at all whatsoever. The Bible says...
Right, and the problem with this is that there are people with very nuanced opinions on this stuff that are not like hardcore progressives or liberals. They maybe have exceptions for rape, incest, danger to the mother, things like that. They give exceptions for that, and to say like those people are not acceptable Christian leaders, they're not like woke, or they're not like super liberal on the issue, but to say like you have to be the most hardcore pro-life position or you are not an acceptable Christian leader, I actually think is an unacceptable opinion.
You shall not murder. It's one of the 10 Commandments, and abortion is murder. I know, Pope Leo was like, oh, if you're supporting the death penalty, you're not really pro-life. That's not true.
Yeah, he's right about that. By the way, Zoomer and many others have been going after the Pope. The Pope has been absolutely posting bangers. I want to be very clear about this. The conservatives are super upset at the Pope right now for literally just being a Christian. It's crazy. Like the Pope's like, we shouldn't execute people because we should always leave the possibility for redemption open. The poor should take a position of privilege in our society, and we should treat them with kindness and respect. And people are going nuts. Like they're hating him for that. And I just don't understand it. I tweeted this out today, and I think this is absolutely true, is like the Pope just keeps posting his Christian opinions, and the people who abuse Christ, frankly, I think a lot of people who abuse Christ and use his name in order to gain power, they're just going to continue to like cope and seethe and like have an issue with it because they know deep in their heart they're wrong on those issues. Now, saying that the death penalty is acceptable as a Christian is a valid opinion. So I don't think that in particular is a super problematic opinion, being pro-death penalty. I mean, there's a lot of scriptural evidence that you can point to for it. But I think when Pope Leo is posting things about like the poor having a privileged place in the kingdom of God, that's also scriptural. People just don't like that. And they're like, oh, he's letting, the far left take over the church. He's doing all it's just absolute nonsense. It's craziness. That stuff's got to end.
True. Abortion is a much different thing. Christians must not tolerate abortion at all whatsoever. And same-sex unions is also not biblical. Read Romans 1, read 1 Corinthians 6:9.
I have a video on this as well. I think the Bible can be non-binding when it is not dealing directly with your salvation. I think that, meaning it can be, I think the Bible is infallible only when it's dealing with salvation directly. For other things, it's kind of, we take it as the church on a case-by-case basis. I have a video about this as well. A lot of people don't like that opinion. Well, it's still there. And by the way, it's an Orthodox opinion as well. It's not a heretical opinion. By definition, it's not heretical. It's well within Orthodoxy. And most of the reason for that is the moral law of the Old Testament. Yes, we are bound by the moral law of the Old Testament, but it depends on how you define homosexuality and how you want to define that in the modern era versus the time in which the text was written. And I think that's a gray area at best. And so since it's a gray area, the condemnation of people as they are from birth based on a gray area, I think, in the scriptures, is not something I'm willing to do. Anytime we have ambiguity within the scriptures where we're like, well, it's saying this, but it's in a different context where it's not the same now as it was then, and there's like a gray area and you can have opinions on both sides. I try to err on the side of inclusion instead of on the side of inclusion. I try to err on the side of love. If I'm going to err, I'd rather err on the side of love. A lot of people hate when people say that because they're like, well, you shouldn't want to err at all. And it's like, well, I don't want to err, but I could be erring by not being inclusive, right? That could also be an error because it could be a misunderstanding of what we're doing. So I have a long video about this. I'm not going to go into my opinion about that because I have a long video about it, and it's very long and well thought out, I think. And you can go watch it on my channel. But basically, I think Scripture contains all things necessary for salvation. That is the Anglican and the Methodist position. And when it's not necessary for salvation, like teachings on divorce are not necessary for salvation, teachings on head coverings, for example. I think divorce is really bad. I think head coverings are not an issue. but the church did head coverings for a long time and then decided not to, even though it's commanded in the scriptures, because doesn't have anything to do with salvation. And so that text can be kept where it is and doesn't have to apply to modern people, because the infallibility of the Bible does not apply to head coverings like it applies to a vast number of other things that have directly to do with your salvation. But the issue with that is who gets to define what deals with salvation and what doesn't. And that's the church. The church gets to decide that. Your church tradition, whatever the authority is in your church tradition, is going to make that determination on how to interpret the Bible, because the Bible is the authority, right? But deciding how to interpret the Bible is up to the authority of your denomination or the church that you're in. This is one of the things Catholics hate about Protestants, is not hate, but they dunk on all the time. Like, you don't have a magisterial authority. That's actually not true. Like, in Methodism, we have the General Conference. So we have a referee for when we have scriptural disputes. The General Conference is going to decide how to interpret these scriptures and how we're going to deal with these different issues. And the Church of England has that, right? You don't need a pope to be able to do that. So, So I have a long video on both abortion and on my view of LGBT inclusion. You can go find those on my channel. That is not going to be news to anybody who's been watching this channel for a while.
So yeah, this is not going to be good. However, I think a bigger threat to the Church of England than Sarah Mullally is going to be the conservative response to Sarah Mullally by running away, basically.
Yeah, so I disagree with him about the problem of Sarah Mullally as Archbishop. I think it's great. I don't think it's great just because she's a woman. I think it's great because they chose who they felt was best. And if they believe Sarah Mullally is the best person to do the job, then she should be able to do it. There's the first preachers of the gospel were women, right? The first people to proclaim that he is risen were women. There's a good body of evidence that in the early church, women had a leadership role in the early church. And again, this comes down to how different traditions and denominations interpret the scriptures, right? Like, you can go to my comments and argue if you want. I'll read them. There's nothing wrong with that. But at the end of the day, it just comes down to how we interpret the scriptures. And when you disagree on that, it's really hard to have a debate, because if you can't agree on how to interpret the underlying text, then it's going to be hard to get any kind of it's going to be hard for the debate to be meaningful, I guess. It's fine to have a debate, but what it really just comes down to is the interpretation of scripture. So I think Sarah Mullally being the Archbishop of Canterbury is great. I hope she does a good job. I'm praying for her. My bishop is a woman. My conference bishop is a woman. So as an elder in the United Methodist Church, I submit to the authority of a woman, and I don't really have a problem with that. She is duly ordained as an elder and was elected to be my bishop and assigned to me to be my bishop, and that's fine. And she's doing a great job. So, I just really don't have an issue with this from that perspective. Now, what Zoomer did just say was that the bigger problem than her being a bishop to the conservatives should be the fact that conservatives are going to leave over this. I actually also, while I disagree with him about her being bishop, I do agree that it is a huge problem that a bunch of people are just going to run away over this. And the weirder part about this, guys, here's the weirdest part, is that the Church of England's been ordaining women for a long time. I didn't understand why all of a sudden, because she's the Archbishop, is it going to, like, I'm guessing since the Archbishop of Canterbury is a woman, that there have been women bishops in the Church of England for a long time. Okay, just because she's the top bishop, there's a woman in the top bishop seat. Why is that what's going to trigger all of a sudden? It's like, oh, that's the straw. It's like, you guys have been ordaining women for a long time, and like, these groups in the Anglican communion know that they're ordaining women. So if you have a problem with that, why are you even in it to begin with? It's very confusing. I'm sure maybe some light will be shed on this. So that was what was confusing to me, is like, I get the argument around like LGBT inclusion into the clergy because we've never done it before, right? And so people are like, well, we've never done it before. It's not in our tradition, right? But this is different because it's like, oh, now we're splitting, even though we've been ordaining women for years and making them bishops. I don't know. It's kind of strange to me, but
this has been the entire point of my channel for 3 years, has been pointing this out. The reason liberals always take over institutions is because the second they make any victory at all whatsoever, conservatives always run away.
Yeah, it's true.
That's all conservatives have ever done.
Hey, he's not
in
wrong
the
about this.
mainstream.
A lot of people online cope and seethe about Zoomer's opinion on this, but he is right, and I think people get mad about it because they kind of know he's right, and I think, which is fair, because I think Zoomer's wrong about a lot of stuff, obviously, but he is right about this, just like from a factual standpoint, and it's like a huge issue. And the more I've been reflecting, I really wish the conservatives didn't leave the United Methodist Church. I miss them. They didn't have to leave. Nobody was forcing the conservatives out. They left on their own accord. And I had a lot of friends that I miss, and our relationships were damaged over the schism. It was not good. And I kind of wish they didn't leave. I disagreed deeply with them on many issues, but they didn't have to leave. I wasn't going to force them out. I've always been in favor when the United Methodist Church did LGBT inclusion, I was always very much in favor of retaining pastoral rights to do whatever weddings you want to do, which has always been the case, by the way. The minister in the United Methodist Church, the way our system works, the minister has the final say on how the building is used for religious purposes. That's a pretty new thing. We also have the final say on any kind of religious rites being done for literally no questions asked. The right of the pastor to bring people into membership in the church or marry whoever they want to marry for basically any reason is completely protected by church law, no questions asked. And so I was like, look, if you don't want to do a gay wedding, just say no. There were plenty of conservative churches where conservative pastors could serve. I just did not think schism was the answer at the end of the day. Oh, well, that's not true. I did at a certain point. It was so frustrating that I just kind of threw up my hands and was like, then let's just do it. Let's just get it over with. But in retrospect, I think that was an error, and I wish it didn't happen. But it is what it is. The Methodist Church has schismed before, and we schismed over slavery and came back together. So I actually think there's a good chance that might happen again. We could come back together in the future.
Established institutions over the past 100 years is...
Oh, by the way, if you think the United Methodist Church or the Methodist Church won't come back together because you're like, oh, the divides are just too deep. Guys, the slavery divide was pretty deep. We literally fought an apocalyptic war in the United States over it. So don't think that our current issues are deeper than that. If we can come back together after that, we can come back together after this.
Run away and run away and run away. Every single church split is the liberals keeping the institutions and the conservatives running away and splitting off. And when they do that, they cede ground to the liberals. When conservatives run away from an institution, they are removing conservative votes. They are removing dissenting voices. They are further solidifying the destiny of that institution as liberal. Now, some people might say, oh, it's too late. But that's what they've said every time. Every time conservatives split off for the past 100 years, every group of conservatives thinks, okay, this ship has sailed, we're leaving, and a few stay, but then...
Yeah, think about like all the little like offshoot Presbyterian conservative groups. Like if they all went back to the PCUSA, it would probably be conservative again. Like if they all banded together and were like, we're going to become PCUSA. There's a way to be a church and in communion with each other where you can still allow local control on certain issues. And this was a huge debate in Methodism, which is what we're doing now. It's called regionalization. So we're going to maintain about half the United Methodist churches in Africa now, which is awesome. But they are much more conservative and they live in a totally different context, and they shouldn't have to live by our rules. We shouldn't have to live by theirs, but we can still be in communal mission with each other. I still want to send a lot of our money over to Africa from here in the States to help them do missionary work. Even though I know it's conservative, I still want to help with that. And I want to be in communion with them, even though we disagree on issues. There's a way to hold together global institutions, which, by the way, the United Methodist Church is a global institution. A lot of people don't realize that. It is a global institution. It is in Southeast Asia. It's in Africa. We're pretty big. There's 10 million of us. It's pretty big. So there's a way to hold together a global church. You have two options on holding together a global church. There are two ways to do it. You can do it how the Catholics do it, which is where they give no power to lay people. Only the clergy have power in the direction of the institution. Obviously, as Methodists and Protestants, we don't really like that. We like having lay people involved in the governance. And if you're going to have lay people involved, you have to give some more regional control. Because when all the clergy are in control, they're in covenant with each other to not split, schism, lead schism. They're like in covenant, but the laity are not so much. They don't always feel that towards each other. And so if the lay people are going to be involved, we have to give some regional control, some local control on certain issues and policies on certain issues, which I'm more than happy to do. And the United Methodist Church has done through something we call regionalization. That just happened actually very recently.
And the next time a liberal thing happens, some of them leave, and then a few it goes on forever, and it's going to keep going on forever.
It is, yep.
Because conservatives just have a retreatist mindset. Now,
and it's true. It is weird because like this is something I never thought of until I started watching some Redeem Zoomers videos. I had never thought of it, but it was like, yeah, this is actually really true, and it's really weird. Like, liberals like in the United Methodist Church, dude, there were liberal pastors on LGBT stuff going back to the 70s. They had been fighting that fight for 50 years, even when they were like in the 5% minority. And they just stayed dogged and determined until they got the outcome they wanted. And you never see that with conservatives in the church. And I think it's weird, but I also think there's a reason. I think the reason is because conservatives care more about the purity of the institution. And so when the purity of the institution's in question, it makes them deeply uncomfortable. And so I think that's why it happens, but it is weird and it's not necessary for it to happen.
I want to assure you guys that
I want conservative people in the United Methodist Church, even though I deeply disagree with them, but I don't want them cast out of our church. I want to find a way to be in communion with them while also giving them the control and the power and the ability to do the things that they feel are best.
Even though she is very liberal and we must not approve of her, she does not speak for the entire Church of England. One of the beautiful things about Protestantism is that you don't actually have to approve of the leaders of your church to be in the church. My denomination, the PCUSA, is more liberal than the Church of England. But I'm staying in the PCUSA because I know hundreds of very traditional conservative faithful pastors, including my own, in the PCUSA. And the church has always had problems. There was the medieval pornocracy, basically, where every pope was hiring prostitutes in the Vatican. People did not schism from the church during that time. The papacy was insanely corrupt in the Middle Ages, but the corruption itself was not reason to schism. The reformers only left when they were forcibly excommunicated many times over.
Yeah, he's made this point many times.
So this should not be a reason to schism either. And there are conservative alliances within the Church of England. Some people asked, when are you going to start a Reconquista movement for the Church of England? My response is, that already exists. There are multiple, very strong, very robust conservative organizations within the Church of England. And like the Episcopal Church in America doesn't really have these organizations as much. So I think there's actually more hope for the Church of England than for a lot of other mainline churches. So we're going to talk about them. There is the Church of England Evangelical Council. And evangelical in this context doesn't mean like non-denominational. Evangelical in a European context means you're conservative, you believe the Bible. I'm curious
to see what they're going to say about it.
And sometimes evangelical just means...
Because what's weird about it is in Methodism, we didn't have the women's ordination problem currently. Obviously, we granted women ordination rights in the 1950s. But like the conservatives, even like the hardcore conservatives in the United Methodist Church before the schism, almost all thought women's ordination was fine. The most hardcore. That's why like that's what makes Methodism. It's like kind of it's a more progressive institution because even our conservatives agreed with the ordination of women. So yeah, we didn't really struggle with this. So like if our bishop became a woman, nobody was going to like struggle with it because we had already been ordaining women. Like people were ordained in the 70s and 80s and women had already been being ordained for the 20, 30 years by that point.
Whether or not you're conservative in Europe. But basically, they have made a response to this. And because these are the conservatives in the Church of England, you should listen to their statement before you think about jumping ship if you're in the Church of England. It says, the Church of England Evangelical Council is praying for Bishop Sarah Mullally and yada, 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 niceties. The Church of England does face challenges, and this is the context of significant divisions, but they're still going to pray for Bishop Sarah. You should pray for people you don't like. The Bible says to pray for our leaders whether we like them or not. We don't have to, and we're praying that this might be a movement where the current drift away from a biblical and Anglican understanding of marriage and sexual ethics is either halted or a way is found to secure biblical convictions in the Church of England for the future.
Yeah, none of this surprises me because I'm moving over here now. None of this surprises me because even the conservatives in the Church of England are probably not against women's ordination, or not all of them are, and it's probably not even the majority of them because they've already been in an institution that's been ordaining women for decades, right? So
now, I do have a lot of friends who are insiders in the Church of England, and even though they know that Bishop Sarah has very cringe views, she does have a history of making room for conservative voices in the Church of England.
yeah.
Because the institution cares about unity above all, they're not going to choose an archbishop who's going to kick out the conservatives, because the Church of England will collapse financially if they kick out the conservatives.
Yeah.
Here's another reason to be hopeful. In the Church of England, just like every other mainline Protestant denomination, the only churches that are growing rather than dying out are the conservative ones. Most Church of England parishes...
That's not true. My church is pretty progressive, and it's been one of the faster growing churches in my conference. Them's the facts, dog. Them's the facts. Our church is doing really well. So, I mean, we're not the most progressive church of all time, but it is a progressive church. So the idea that no progressive churches are growing is just not true.
have
I do think it's probably more common for conservative churches to grow than progressive churches, but that has nothing to do with the theology has nothing to do with progressive Christian theology. It has to do with one of the main problems with progressive Christians is they don't do evangelism well. And that does have roots in their theology, but that's the main issue, is they just stink at evangelism.
5 old people there, and every sermon is about the environment or something. It's good to care about the environment. That's not why you go to church. But the evangelical churches within the Church of England are booming. So yes, we might have a few more cringe archbishops, but if the conservatives just stay, in 30 years, they're going to be the only ones left. So there's the Church of England Evangelical Council. There's also the Church Society, which is another conservative organization. They have also made a statement. They say, "We note the election of Dame Sarah Mullally. We offer our congratulations and prayers. With the milestone election of female archbishops, we note the positive comments of the bishop about this here." I'm going to read that. "We need change of direction, not just of sex, yada, yada, yada. We pray that at a time when there is..."
Yeah, this is all nothing burger, because they all know that there are women who are bishops and there are women who are priests in the Church of England. So they're just they're acknowledging that it's a divisive thing that's happening, but they're not this sucks and she's not our bishop. They're never going to say that because they've already been living under women bishops and priests for a long time.
Serious fracture and distrust on this subject, as there is serious safeguarding that God would give Bishop Sarah the wisdom she will need to restore confidence and credibility of the church. And Bishop of Ebbsfleet has said he would like to congratulate Sarah and the appointment of an archbishop who is a woman, significant milestone. And it will present challenges for complementarians, because most traditional Christians don't believe that women really should have the roles of
right.
presbyter or bishop. So they recognize that there will be challenges, but none of them want to leave the Church of England.
Why would you? It's crazy.
Even the conservatives in the Church of England, who don't support her beliefs, and some of them don't support her at all because she's a woman, they are still staying in the Church of England. There are still conservative alliances in the Church of England. If you are in the Church of England, there is still a home for you. I always say that if Athanasius had the mindset of most modern conservatives today, we would all be going to hell. You know why?
Sorry, let me rewind. I didn't mean to crack my neck that hard, guys. Sorry.
Conservatives today. If Athanasius had the mindset of most modern conservatives today, we would all be going to hell. You know why? There was a time in the early church where basically all the bishops were Arians, Arian heretics. There was a time where it was worse for the church than it is now, with Bishop Sarah Mullally.
It's true.
There was a time when most of the bishops in the church were heretics, and Athanasius was exiled by the emperor 5 times.
Athanasius has become one of my favorite people in church history, if not my favorite. I have a giant icon in a frame of him. It's in my office because I like to remind when I have challenges in ministry, I look at Athanasius and I don't ask him to pray for me because I don't think you need the saints to pray for you, but I get inspiration from his story.
For trying to fight heresy in the church. But he never gave up. People tried to discourage him and say, the world is against you. And he said, well, then I am against the world. If he had the mindset of the ACNA or the PCA, he would have split off and founded Athanasius' Free Bible Church in the desert, and then the entire church would have gone Arian and we would all be going to hell. Now, I believe that God in his providence would not have allowed that, but I'm just saying hypothetically. People these days need the mindset of a conquistador. People need the mindset of a crusader, not a retreatist. Some people are like, what about my kids, though?
I just feel like I get his sentiment, but choosing language matters, and I think Zoomer has like kind of seen this over the last couple of days based on some of his tweets. He's apologized for it. You got to be really careful in the language you use when you're like, you got to be a conquistador. My brother, conquistadors literally murdered and like are responsible for genocide, right? Like, yes, I understand the point you're making, and I don't necessarily like disagree like with the point you're making. Like, it's a time, like if you believe in a cause, you have to kind of fight for it, but we don't have to call them conquistadors or crusaders. Just like use different language. And you can say, oh, it's just like a metaphor. No, language matters because you're trying to convince people not that agree with you, because this is really important. You've already convinced them. You have to convince people who disagree with you, which means language is even more important. The language you use and the way you present your arguments is even more important.
Was that the mindset of the apostles who got fed to the lions? The early Christians who got fed to the lions? Many of them had kids. Many of them had families, but they didn't retreat. You know, I want my kids one day to see me as someone who stands for what I believe, not someone who hides them in a bubble. And also, just because the leader of the Church of England is liberal doesn't mean every church in the Church of England is liberal.
Yeah,
now, personally,
of course.
I think that,
like, that's true in my conference, right? Like, we've had conservative bishops, liberal bishops, but yeah, there's still conservative churches in the United Methodist Church. It's absolutely true. There's still conservative churches in my conference.
Going to a liberal church, you can go to liberal church if you're not liberal, if that's the only option. It's better to not. It's better to go to the most biblically faithful church of your denomination that you can find. Like I do. I'm in the PCUSA, but I go to a conservative PCUSA church. Because the Church of England is like everywhere in England, you can almost always find a conservative Church of England church. And that's why I have this Operation Reconquista map. So
he's plugging himself
this
again.
map
I love it.
only contains churches from mainline denominations, from broadly liberal mainline denominations, but it only includes the conservative churches within these liberal.
My church is not on this list. Even though we get along, Zoomer and I get along, my church is not on this list because, unfortunately, I'm a progressive pastor, so I'm not on the cool list. That's okay. That's okay, though. I get what he's trying to do. Stand up for what you believe in. But, yeah, my church is not going to be on this list.
So over here, you can find a conservative...
Even though we teach a lot of Orthodox theology. I just did a sermon series on evangelism. I'm doing a sermon series on stewardship and giving and tithing right now. We do very biblically minded stuff.
Church of England parish on this map, and this isn't even all of them. There's hundreds and hundreds of conservative Church of England parishes. These are just the ones we know about. So if you know of a conservative Church of England parish that's not on this map, leave it in the comments and I'll add it. And we have Church of Scotland. Also the Presbyterian Church of Ireland. We added basically every church because it is basically a conservative church. Anyway, so there is hope for the Church of England. If you're in the Church of England, do not leave. Do not abandon the fight. This is not the time to abandon the fight. And if you are in one of these mainline denominations, you are welcome to join the Operation
All right, he's doing his housekeeping stuff, so I think we're going to be done. Look, here's the thing. I'm fine with women's ordination. I guess I should really, in this response, I really am more like I should do a video on women's ordination. So I will do that. I don't know when, but I will do that because that's kind of the basis for everything here. Is I do think it's fine for women to hold the office of deacon or elder. presbyter and diaconia, or even the episcopos, the bishop. I don't have an issue with that. Theologically, there are reasons for that are I really, frankly, should be saved for a whole different video. So I promise to do that at some point, because I think it's something that a lot of people are talking about, obviously, right now. So I think it's a good time to talk about it and talk about the theology and why so many churches have accepted women in ministry. So I will do that. So let me know what you think in the comments. Let me know kind of where you're leaning and what you're thinking about things. I like to read that. Please be respectful. I don't mind comments that disagree. Try your best. If you have a correction, offer the correction, because I like that, but try your best not to like push your glasses up and do, well, actually, because I've been getting some of those comments. They're like, well, actually this, and it's like, yes, sometimes in a video, I don't have time to like explain every facet of a theological thing. So try not to like, well, actually, the best you can. Try to offer substantive corrections if those are needed. I will take those. And let me know your thoughts, agree or disagree, because I like to read them. Whether I agree with them or not, I like to read them, and it helps me. Sometimes you guys offer like really good like rebuttals, and I'm like, it makes me like dig deeper into my side. Sometimes I change my mind, sometimes I don't, but it makes me dig deeper into my own belief system and my own theology. So let me know what you think in the comments. One of the best things you can do if you like the commentary today is like and subscribe to the channel. That's the best thing you can do to help a young, growing channel like mine. But I'm Reverend Matt, and I'm the Connectionalist, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.